It's the Elizabeth Chance podcast. Look at that. That's a new name. Happy Labor Day to everybody out there. And I had to say, you know what? I didn't realize Canada has Labor Day, Australia has Labor Day, and New Zealand has Labor Day. Did you know that?
Don't forget Japan.
Oh, and Japan. Look at that. I didn't even know that any other place had Labor Day. Did you? JF's here, by the way, everybody. Say hi to JF. Hi, JF.
Hi.
Hi. So we're doing something totally different today, and that JF is going to ask me questions.
How about that?
The control freak, me, is going to be asked questions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how's that going to go?
I have a lot of questions.
So I'm very nervous. So I'm just telling you guys, I'm nervous because I have no idea what he's going to ask me. I was like, are you going to give me a little like cheat sheet or something? And he's like, nope. I'm like, oh my God. All right, so here we go. JF's taking the helm. Busy. Elizabeth Chance sitting back. I'm going back. I'm in the passenger seat. That never happens.
All right, I thought we'd start out really light and easy. Do you know where my blue jeans are? No.
Oh, no, I have to find them. I know they're somewhere. I promise I'll find them. I have no idea where they are at this moment.
Seriously, all fun aside. Oh, wait, we want to have fun. I was thinking that the Elizabeth has been doing the Busy Living Sober podcast now for I think about 6 years, and she's helped out lots and lots and lots of people. And she has recently decided she's changing her mission, and she's making some changes with the podcast. And so I thought, my first question would be, what is going on with that? Can you give us a little background on Busy Living Sober and tell us what's going on with the podcast now?
Okay, so thanks for the question.
Sure.
That one's not too scary. Okay, the blue jeans is scary. I'm just kidding. So 6 years ago, September, I just realized this. I started this podcast in 2017, so it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
And I started it because I got sober 17 years. So I had 11 years sobriety at that point, and I'd been giving talks in my town, which I was living in Wayne, PA, where I'm from, or not where I'm really from, but where I raised my kids. And I was giving these talks, and 0 to 5, a major, amazing marketing firm that's based in Devon, Pennsylvania, Michelle Pajeas and her family, some of her kids run it now, and her husband. And they said to me, why don't you change your mission and start a podcast? And I was like, what is a podcast? I had no idea what a podcast was 6 years ago. And fast forward to today. So I've been doing this for 6 years, and it's been focused mainly on recovery from addiction. And it's been amazing. And I've helped, as JF mentioned, thank you for mentioning that too, that I've helped a lot of people. And it's been really amazing to watch and to be able to share with people that it is okay to get sober, and that it doesn't, I'm gonna have to spit water real quick. That for one, your recovery doesn't have to define your life, and that you can have a life afterwards, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. So that's why I originally did this. So now fast forward 6 years, and I've been having a lot of, for one, I love people, and I always have. And I've always had a desire since I was a little girl. For those of you that know who Barbara Walters is, Barbara Walters was always my idol. I always was like, oh my gosh, she's getting these interviews with these amazing people, and she's asking these questions, and maybe I would have asked this, and maybe I would have asked that. I really can't wait to I want to be the next Barbara Walters. So I've had that dream since I was a little kid. So fast forward to, I'm 54, almost 55. I'll be 55 in a month. And I still have that love for interviewing people, and I still have that desire to be able to make a difference with interviews. So I want to be able to interview all sorts of people, and not necessarily will they have an alcohol problem. For instance, Caroline, I had on last week, who shop with Caroline, and she's amazing story. And everybody has struggles, and I want to share those struggles. And not all of them are based in alcohol. Some people have struggles with food. Some people have struggles with not being able to get their career. Some people get stuck in their lives, like Caroline described last week. Like, she had a time in her life where she had just become a mom, and she had put herself on the back burner, and now she's doing something. And so for me, I feel like here I am. It's Elizabeth 5.0. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see what happens. I don't think I'm too old yet. I mean, maybe one day I will be too old, but not yet. And I really, really, really want to interview all sorts of people. And I've been doing that along my path. So I thought instead of keeping the podcast named With Busy Living Sober, which unfortunately or fortunately still has a kind of a weird connotation because people are like, wait a minute, I'm coming on your podcast. I'm not even sober. So I decided to get rid of the sober and just call it Elizabeth Chance Podcast.
Nice. And so you are a storyteller for sure. And I've noticed over the years that your best, some of your best podcasts are with other people that are good storytellers. And you've had a couple of really good ones on recently. I've a couple of podcasts that I really, really, really enjoyed. So is that sort of what you're looking to do now? Is that what you're going to entertain us with, is people's stories? People's stories
and people's how they've gotten through, adversity, and how they've dealt with things, and how they pivoted, and how they changed. I mean, one of my favorite podcasts I did recently was with she's actually a friend. I have known her since she was for a really long time, and she just gave up drinking, and she didn't do it the way that I did it, which was getting sober, through AA, but she did it a different way. And her story, it was so compelling. I loved just hearing how she decided to give it up for, for a month for the month of January. And now how her life has changed so dramatically. And that's a story of inspiration. And it's not just about alcoholism, because I don't even know if she's an alcoholic. I don't know if she thinks she's an alcoholic. It doesn't even matter. But her story was so riveting. Mm-hmm. And then Caroline's story. And then Lorenzo Borghese, who is a family friend and amazing person as well. And he's a great storyteller. He's into politics and he makes beer, and hearing his story of how he, was on The Bachelor and where it has taken him 20 years later. I also had his mother on. I've had Antoinette Giantempo, who is an astrologer. And it's just been really, really fun to tell these people's stories and be able to have people that not only do I love, and some people I don't even know that have come on, like Caroline last week. I'd never met her in my life. But to be able to have these conversations and come and talk about things that are pertinent to people is really is what I love. I love to hear people's stories. I love to meet people and have people tell me, what is it that makes you tick? What is it? How did you get through that thing that was so hard? Mm-hmm. And they tell me, and I want to share it with everybody.
And are you going to be geared towards any specific group? I mean, is it more towards women, or is it just for everybody?
I think it's for everybody. I just actually met a doctor. You were with me, but we met a doctor. We were in Miami, and I started talking to her, and she's amazing. She grew up in Nigeria, and she went to medical school in Miami. And I think her story would be relative to anyone that was listening, as well as a lot of other people. So I think that I'm not really going to pigeonhole myself with any certain type of person.
Nice. And you'll always have a soft spot in your heart for sobriety, right?
Of course, because I am sober, and I pray I stay sober until my last dying breath. Even though it sounds kind of morbid, but I really, I know that my relationship with alcohol doesn't work. So I don't want to ever, go back to that. And I pray I don't ever do it again.
And where do you see this going? What does Elizabeth see with the Elizabeth Chance Podcast, and where are we headed?
We're headed into a world where I'm hoping that people can feel like, for one, they are not alone, and that they too can get out there and they can change. And, where this goes down the road, I have no idea. I know that, I've thought about starting a beverage company. I've started about having swag. I've thought about doing live shows. So I have a lot of things in the works. And I just actually had lunch with somebody a little bit ago, and we talked about different guests that I'm going to have on. And we're going to talk about miracles and what miracles are going on right now, because I feel like right now in our society, there's so much focused on negativity politically and what's going on around the world. So to show people that there are signs of hope, signs of that everything is good, like God is good, and we have to come together as a group and rejoice in things rather than be pulled apart. So my goal is to bring people together and say, you got this, you can do this, you can do this, you can put a smile on your face, you can go out. It's been a hard 3 years, since COVID, and people being locked in their homes and people being pulled apart again politically and being pulled apart with what they believe and what the other person doesn't believe in. I want to bring some common ground and realize that we are all human beings having a human experience, and we need to respect each other more, and we need to have more love than we have divisiveness.
So I heard in that, I was curious, this was focused on a couple of things. I heard you say that, we don't have to do this alone. And I heard you talk a lot about people coming together. And so is it your intention to sort of form a community out of this? It sounds like.
I would love to. I would love to have an app. I would also like to do some retreats and get people together.
Mhm.
And so we can physically be together and share and break bread and be able to talk to each other and give each other a hug. Because I think that's kind of missing in life, is the ability to go over and just give somebody a hug and say, God, I love you. And to friends and everybody, it's been a really hard time. And I think we need more love and more trust and more respect.
And so tell us a little bit more about yourself, because we all know, everybody knows that Elizabeth Chance is a recovering alcoholic, but what other qualifications do you have? I know you pretty well, so I know that they're expensive, but you may want to share those with the rest of the people that maybe don't know a lot of the things that you have and that you do and that you bring to the table.
Well, it's interesting because I interviewed somebody for Wednesdays. It's airing on Wednesday, but, and we were talking about being able to fit into a checklist and fit into a box. And I've always been one. I actually remember when my oldest child was going to look at schools, and I went and looked at one school, and it was very like, you had to fit in this box. And I was like, oh, we can't go there because we don't fit in boxes. We've never been able to fit in a box. So I personally have always been, I'll just go back to the beginning. I've always been, as I mentioned, aspiring to be an on-air television person. I've always wanted to do that. I did work on QVC a little bit when I was younger. And then I had kids in Life Got Lifey. And
you were in a movie or two as well, right?
I was an extra in Lovely Bones and Silver Linings Playbook, but I don't even think you could see me, but I didn't really go and check. But I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to have the camera and have people talking to me and asking me questions. I don't know why. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do. And I always have. And I used to have a lot of fear of what other people were going to think of me. And if I was good enough, if I was capable enough, I didn't have the right this, I didn't have the right that, I wasn't skinny enough, I was too old, I was too this. And I decided, for one, I want to put that to the wayside. And my journey up to now has been, I was certified as a recovery coach when I had a couple of years of sobriety. That was 17 years ago, but that was, I guess, 14 years ago. So I'm a certified recovery coach, and I worked in that field with families and with addicts. And that was really great. And I learned a lot, and I got really burned out from it. And then a year ago, right now, I actually went and I got certified to be a yoga instructor. And that was really something that I wanted to get closer. For me, I wanted to get closer to God, because they say that you get uncomfortable, and during that breath, you get closer to, your higher power. And I wanted to get so I guess I've become more spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked on that, and then I decided to get into the health and wellness space, and I was certified as a health and wellness coach. Not to mention, I was a single mom, and I raised 3 children that are now launched off doing their own things. I moved to Florida 5 years ago. I got married 5 years ago, remarried, and that has been a journey within itself. It hasn't been what we thought it was going to be, but it's definitely been a learning curve. And being an empty nester threw me for a much bigger loop than I ever thought it was. I was always, when my kids were little, I always just wanted it to be tomorrow, or I always wanted it to be them being grown up. And I always wanted to fast forward through time, because I just wanted them to be grown up. I didn't want, it was, it's hard raising kids by yourself. And I focused so much on them that I mean, they say I'm a helicopter mom, whatever that means. If I am, I don't know, maybe I am. But I definitely wanted to get them to the finish line to me, which was like graduating from high school. So I did that. And when the third one left, when Henry left 5.5 years ago, it was devastating. It was a devastating time. And, other things have transpired that I'm not going to get into that have been also really difficult. And that's been in the last 18 months. But, for so long, my identity was being a mom. And then I'm still a mom. It's just they're all doing their own things and have their own lives, which I'm so appreciative of. And I'm glad that they're doing their lives. And I feel like now I've heard so many things I read in the book, The Prophet, just recently with some of my friends, that, your children are given to you so that you can raise them and set them free. And I've done that. So here I am now, I meditate all the time. I go to a sound bowl healing once a week with some girls. And I'm really feeling like it's 5.0, but it feels amazing. Like I've never felt so comfortable in my own skin as I do today.
So it's interesting when I was listening to you talk about that, and I was thinking, well, my place where I relate is, in the recovery world. And, when you put your addiction down, it's such a profound change in your life. I mean, it's a totally profound change. And, the way you described your children leaving was such a profound change. Was that the most profound change in your life, do you think? I've been around for that, so I've witnessed it. But I've only known you for about 10 years, so I didn't see stuff prior to that. And I'm very curious.
I think that for one, getting sober was a huge change, because that was the first time in my life I ever went and said, I don't really know who I am. I was 37 years old. I had 3 kids, an ex-husband down the street, and I had always been what everybody else wanted me to be. So I was like, all right, I lived my life like a checklist, like you were talking about kind of earlier. Like I got married, I graduated from college, check. I got married, check. I bought a house, check. All this stuff was like checklists and checklists. And I never really had any time that I actually sat back and said, who am I? Because I've learned so many meditations that have said, who are you? And that was the first time in my life I thought to myself, who am I? And the longer that I've stayed sober, the more, and especially in the past 5 years, and people have always said, like, when you get to your 50s, you don't really care as much anymore. And I don't know if it's not, you don't care as much anymore, but you become more comfortable in your own skin. And I have, because of life's choices that I've made or we've made, I've had to endure times that are really hard, right? That haven't been easy, that haven't looked like I would have wanted them to look, like my ideal of what everything was going to look like. So getting comfortable in knowing that I have to trust that everything's going to work out the exact way it is supposed to look like. I talked about that in recovery for many, 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 many years, but I had never really truly been in a place where it's the third step in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you were to look at it. And it's like, I truly letting go, and I'm truly letting go. And I have no idea. I just know that I wanted to pivot, and my faith and my desires were so much higher than my fear for the first time in my life, that I was like, all right, I'm going to go for this. And I'm just going to try it. And it feels like intuitively. I think the other thing is, when you're sober, and maybe when you're sober as long as I've been, not as long as you've been, but not as long as I have been, you totally learn to know, you feel things inside that, this feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that feeling that it feels right. And other times I've done things where I've been like, this is not right. I can feel it. And I walked with it, even though I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. Now today, I know that where I am right now is right. And whatever happens, I'm going to be okay.
Well, I'm very interested because, the thought occurred to me that, 17 years ago, when you mentioned, like, you didn't know who you were, And you had to find that out, but you got to do it with a very established group of people that have been around for a long time doing this, right? But 5 years ago, when you got to that crossroads, there was no group of established people to do that with. And you have had to do a lot of it on your own. I know you had a couple of friends that have been through similar things and you've got to talk to them about it. But I guess my question is not really a question, but my feeling is that you probably have a lot more to share on that topic than you really ever thought. And that would be incredibly helpful to so many people. I don't know if you really thought about that, yourself, because you have all these great guests that come on and talk a lot, but you really bring so much to the table as far as that goes, because I know you as a seeker and somebody who has really truly sought, and you've gotten to that place, several times, like I just seek and seek and seek, but I never get the answer. What's the answer? Give me the answer. And but we know that I guess the answers come with time.
It's having, it's not giving up. And luckily I am married to you and you have worked a lot on yourself as well. So having a partner that is kind of aware as well makes it really, really nice. And you're always like, don't give up till the miracle happens. Don't give up till the miracle happens. And there's been times that have been really, really hard. And I have friends. I have some friends that I've had since I was in 4th grade. I have some friends that I've met along my journey. Some are older and some are younger. And these people that I have in my life, I keep it's been really weird. I'm going to give you an example. I was, when we were living in Fort Lauderdale, I got together with these people, and for better or for worse, I haven't spoken to any of them since in years at this point, I think. But one woman that I met on my journey there said something to me that I will never forget. And I'm very grateful for her saying to me, she said, you want to keep people around you that are there cheering you on. And I didn't know what that really felt like, because I always wanted to keep together this nuclear, this group that I had always had my whole life. I'd always had some girls and some people in my life that were always there since the beginning. And I felt like I really wanted to have those friendships to the day I die, because they were with me during lots of hard times in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, but it got to the point that it wasn't enough. So I've really gotten into working on I want to have people that are around me that we stimulate each other, that literally cheer me on, and we have deep conversations. And I find that majority of the time, I think maybe now at this age, having a conversation with somebody that is about real serious things, it's I just went and had a conversation with a woman about, her journeys and God and her relationship with God. And that's a very spiritual and it's a very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't really want to talk about those things. And I don't know if they don't want to talk about them because they don't know about what their relationship is, because they haven't taken the time, or they're embarrassed about their relationship. I don't know what it is. I have no idea, but I want to bring that out, because I do believe that everybody has to have some spiritual. It's we all need creativity as much as we need the spirituality. And your spirituality can be something as easy as oh my gosh, I need to go out and take a walk or go for a run. That's where I find my peace. That's where I see God in trees and in nature. But having that sense that there is something bigger than you is what really, really makes me tick.
Mm-hmm. I think for me anyway, that's you hit the nail on the head. And spirituality is an awareness that there's something greater than I am. So yeah, it's interesting. So where do you intend to take us over the next few weeks? Anything on tap that we can get excited about?
Well, I have a bunch of guests.
I noticed one thing, just to interrupt for a second. Wow, is the video quality on this podcast ever so much better than it was?
Well, that's another thing. I'm investing in more technology that I didn't have before. with the thanks to some friends and with Henry and now you, thank you. I'm getting better quality. I have people coming on. I'm booked till the end of November, so I'm thinking about adding another day. That's like been something that I'm pondering right now.
And you're on 3 days a week right now,
No, right now I'm on 2 days.
2 days a week.
So Monday's me, normally by myself, but today you came on. And then Wednesday I have a guest. And then maybe I'll do a Thursday, another guest. I'm thinking about it. If anybody's thoughts, please let me know. Because I do have a bunch of people that I want to invite on. And it's interesting. I found this woman who I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. I also don't talk about that ever, but I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis 2 years ago. And I had psoriasis, and then it led to having psoriatic arthritis. And it's crazy because you go to WebMD and anyway, it's hard to have these diseases and then go, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get those injections, or am I supposed to what am I supposed to do? So I have somebody coming on that's going to talk about psoriatic arthritis. So I'm really excited about that. That is an exciting conversation I want to share with people. But I want to show people, again, you can reach out for help and not be scared of how somebody's going to react.
Yes, and I think the fear is judgment, correct?
Yeah, that word. That word. Judgment. I've spent at least a decade praying that God takes away my judgment, because I find that I really don't know what's good. I mean, I can tell you what feels right for me intuitively, but each of us have our compasses inside of us, but we don't take the time to go and say, all right, I know what's right inside of me. I know what's correct. I have everything I need right here in this body. I have an education. I read a lot. I feel things, and I've got to trust that more than I do. I don't think we need to have all these checks of like, oh, I went to this Ivy League school, I went to this and got my PhD. And I mean, I think if that's what you want to do, I commend you. I don't say that that's bad, but I think a lot of us intuitively have everything we need, and all we need to do is get a little quiet and be able to trust that instincts inside of us, and then move forward going that way. And I want to share the stories of other people that have done that.
Well, that would be awesome, because I think we all need that, and we probably all need a guide to get us to that place. So that would be really good. So is there anything else on your mind that you would like to talk about?
Only thing I want to say is that there is in the world I'm just going to say from Alcoholics Anonymous, because this is where I learned it, and I'm just going to give it credit where credit is due. There's this Rule 62, and Rule 62 means you don't need to take yourself so seriously. And I think a lot of us take everything really personally and really seriously. And excuse me, sorry, I think that we need to have a little fun, relax a little. I was with somebody today, and she said, I think you should ask at the end of each one of your podcasts. She said, I think you should ask these questions. I said, okay. For one, have you ever had a miracle happen? And my answer would say many miracles have happened in my life. Getting sober was like the biggest miracle. And watching and being able to see miracles happen in other people's lives has been like one of the best gifts I've ever been able to see. And I think she said, she asked me another question. She said, what if you ask, what was the second question? Right?
I know what it is.
Okay.
She said, you should ask everybody, where do you think you're going to go when you die?
Oh yeah, that is a big question. She said, where do you think you're going to go when you die? And I believe, and if you don't believe, it's okay. And I believe that we do go to heaven, and that it's a beautiful place. And I don't know if I necessarily am going to see my mom's gone now, my grandmothers are gone and my grandfathers are gone. I don't know if I'm going to see them. I don't know about that, but I know that it's going to be peaceful wherever it is and whatever it is, it's going to be peaceful.
Mhm.
I feel that in my heart and I trust in that. And I believe that I don't know, it's like amazing. I think that stories are what keep us going on this planet. I think that stories, last night I was actually looking at the Bible and I was looking at a story in the Bible that I had been interested in, which is the story of Esther. It's from the Old Testament. And being able to see stories that went way, way back before BC, before Christ, and being able to see those stories and where we are today in 2023 and what our story is going to be and what is my story going to be at the last of my dying breath. And I just did not want to keep going my life just focusing on that one thing. I have had this dream and I'm going for it, and it's okay.
Well, I got to tell you that I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that you're sticking with us. And yes, you are so much larger than one thing. I live with this person, and believe me, she has many things going on at the same time all the time. And I think it's great that you're gonna be able to share that with anybody who's interested, I mean, it's never been a requirement that somebody has to be sober to listen to your podcast, but like you said, it could maybe be a little off-putting to somebody that it's a sober podcast. And like, I don't have a drinking problem. I don't have a drug problem, but I'm really excited for the Elizabeth Chance podcast, and I can't wait to see where things go.
Well, thank you. Cause I will just, I'm gonna end with this. Like, I thought for a long time, what am I gonna call it? And I tried to get kitschy and with my busy being my nickname and all this rest of this stuff. And I was like, oh, Mel Robbins has the Mel Robbins show. But she, went to Dartmouth. She was on CNN. So she's like, obviously she can do that. And then, Joe Rogan, I love Joe Rogan. I listen to him all the time. He's Joe Rogan. You're like, he's Joe Rogan show. I mean, he was on Fear Factor. He's in a WWF fighter or whatever he is. He's not a WWF fighter, whatever he is. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. Anyway, he's a podcaster to me. And I was like, what am I going to call it? And I just thought, you know what? Elizabeth Chance is my name. I'm just calling Elizabeth Chance Podcast. It's easy. It's memorable. It doesn't have any connotations but my name. And nobody has to read into what this means. So that's where we are. And I am excited that you did this. I mean, I really did not. I'm going to be honest. Was not like wanting to do this one-on-one. I have another friend who was like, I'm going to interview you. I'm going to interview you, which she still might do. I have no idea. But I thought, all right, I'll let JF do it because it'll be fun. Because people love hearing you, and they always tell me that they love seeing you.
It was fun, and you know what? It was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that you came to my podcast today, so I could talk to you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys check out. Here we are. We're starting right now. Here we go. Welcome to the Elizabeth Chance Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe. And we'll be back on Wednesday. And until next time, keep taking care of you. Bye, everybody. Bye, JF.
I like that tagline. Bye.
I just made that up right then. Isn't that crazy? Bye, everybody. Take care.